All right. I was the other day talking to you about the whole idea of, uh, well, we seem to have lost one. Okay, doesn't matter. The last time I was talking to you about, the inappropriateness of the usage of the center uh, state, sorry, not center, church state controversy. I was basically trying to tell you that in the decades, not decades, sorry, the centuries that were there before the modern period, before Machiavelli, actually, let's not say modern period because Machiavelli predates the modern period by a few years. So you will find that the word political and everything disappears completely. Okay, and the state as such as a word never appears even in the Greek times. Political, politics, and all appeared in the Greek times, but state doesn't appear in the Greek times as well. It is something that comes into being in the modern period. When we discuss the modern period, we will discuss the reasons why the state as an entity comes into being. Okay, so I told you that is the reason why we cannot talk about a state in the context of the controversy with the church. Now, here, let's also be very clear that there is some confusion surrounding the usage of church as well. Okay, the sick, uh, problem that we have surrounding the usage of the word church is that when we talk about a church, we don't talk about it as an institution. We normally talk about it as uh, structure where people go to worship. People of a particular religion go to worship. Like for example, uh, temple. Temple is something you can see in front of you, right? A mosque is another thing that you can see in front of you. Similarly, the church. Church is something that you can see in front of you. But are we using church in that state? Is there one church? There are so many churches across the world. So is that it? Is that what we are talking about? So we are not talking about it as a physical structure. We're talking about it as an abstraction. An abstraction meaning some kind of uh, a prevailing institution with certain norms that are commonly adhered to by a number of people. That is how we talk about uh, the church when we talk about it, not as a particular thing, particular structure, but as an institution. Okay, an institution again as an abstract institution. Let us be very clear about that. So, a better thing to do would be to divest ourselves of these uh, possible corruptions of the original terminology. And apart from that, let us also divest ourselves of the, what do you say, the problems that are associated with not clearly stating what we mean by something like a church. So it is uh, better to talk about it in the words that were used in Latin in the medieval period. And the words that were used in Latin in the medieval period were the imperium and the sacerdotium. Okay. the imperium is again an institution, abstract. It's not something you can say. You can show a palace of a king, okay, or a palace of an emperor, but you can't say this is the imperium. That's not the imperium. That is just a palace. An imperium is a way of uh, governance, institutionalized governance, done through a certain kind of institution. Okay, so similarly, when we talk about uh, the church, in order to rid ourselves of the confusion that it might cause us about the confusion that it might cause us about these various different usages of it as a structure, as a place of worship, as an institution. It's not an institution. It was never supposed to be an institution of governance, but when you pit it against the imperium and say the imperium and excuse me, please. Uh, so if we are talking about the imperium and the sacerdotium, we should talk about them on the same level, which is the abstract institutional level, which is used for governance. So was the church, when you look at it as a sacerdotium, was it involved in governance? The answer to that is yes. And you may say, how is it that the church, the sacerdotium, is involved in the aspect of governance? The answer for that is that if you look at the Christian construct of the world, the Christian construct of the world is that the world is a creation. I spoke to you the other day and I told you that this is creationism, which is as opposed to the evolutionism of Charles Darwin, where he talks about origin of the species. In this, what we say is that all the species that were there that are there in this world are those which are created by God. So that's creationism. So, so we are not even saying that that is the reason why we call about governance, but we use that as a point of inflection to basically say that the sacerdotium or the realm of the sacred as it is. So any divine realm, any godly realm is considered to be sacred, inviolable, where you have to necessarily bow your head down and accept what that particular institution says. Okay, so if you're looking at that kind of a thing, then what becomes extremely clear to us is that we should be talking about sacerdotium as a form of governance, especially in the background of the claims made by the Christians that the world was created by God, and as the creator of the world, it was God who basically was a monarch. Monarch, see again, quickly go on that one word, ark. Ark actually is a Greek pronunciation, The English pronunciation is arch, A-R-C-H. So if you talk about the monarch, that means only one arch. Okay, an arch represents power. Arch technically represents power. So if you say monarchy, then you're saying there is one uh, authority or one power that is in existence. If you're saying diarchy, then you're saying there are two. If you're saying triarchy, then you're saying three. If you're saying anarchy, which we traditionally confuse with confusion, anarchy has nothing to do with confusion. If you look at anarchy, anarchy basically is the lack of the operation of any organized power, which means anarchy is without any arches, which are somehow indicative of the operation of power. So when we talk about monarchies, even when we talk about kings, uh, we say monarchies because the king is the only source of power in his own kingdom. And we talk about this as uh, uh, as monarchy in the case of the church as well, in the case of the sacerdotium as well, because it's not the church, the institution, or the sacerdotium, which is the ruler. The ruler is God. So what they are in fact saying is that you cannot basically confine God to one specific place and say, this is your corner. This is where you operate. Okay? From this is where you sit and you operate. Operate meaning from where you carry out your operations. It's not that. What is being said here very clearly is that God created the world, so he has every right, and that is how the language of rights actually begins. He has every right to interfere in any realm of the world, in any realm, social, it can be the imperium. Okay, so the sacerdotium never recognized the imperium as a separate realm in itself. It said no earthly uh, kingship was the equal of the uh, was the equal of the kingship of God, uh, whose power was boundless, meaning that his power did not operate within certain boundaries. So by doing this, what the sacerdotium had done was that it subsumed every other realm of human activity, everything that existed in the world to the rule of God. Now the question comes, who has seen God? You have not seen God. I have not seen God. In fact, if you look at the meaning of God, uh, God basically is no name, the literal translation from Hebrew. Okay, they used to use another word in Yiddish, which is Yahweh, which also has the same meaning, which is no name. Okay, and by extension, no shape. Because if something has a shape, you will name it something. If it is a square, you'll say it is a square. If it is shaped like something like a triangle, you'll say it's a triangle. So when there is no shape, you can't call it. What are you talking about? What exactly are you even saying that so and so has this uh, name given to it in the context of it having a particular shape? So no name and no shape by extension are the meanings of God. And God, in fact, there is a Trinity in Christians. It is the Trinity is uh, God, His Son, which is Jesus Christ, and the Holy Ghost. I told you the other day I don't know what the Holy Ghost is, and I've been too sick to uh, make a check out, go and check out what this Holy Ghost represents. Okay, but Jesus is the Son, and God is this nameless, shapeless entity who is all powerful. Just because he doesn't have a name or a shape, it doesn't mean that he doesn't have the world, doesn't have any power. He has. Funnily enough, in fact, if you take in Hinduism, uh, Vishnu, which is actually pronounced as Vishnu, and Krishna, which is also pronounced originally in Sanskrit as Krishna, they both mean the same as God, which is Vishnu is not anthropomorphic. Anthropomorphic as in not having the shape of a human being. Anthrop is a human being. Morphology is the external characteristics of a human being. So when you describe a human being, you say they have one head, a torso, two hands, two legs. That is anthropomorphic. And our depiction of gods, not just Indian depiction, any depiction in any of the what do we say uh, ancient religions, you find that the depiction is that which is anthropomorphic. The ancient Greek gods looked like human beings. Okay, the ancient Roman gods looked like human beings, but they were not human beings. And in fact, in the during the period of the Renaissance, which is what we are interested in now, you find somebody like the scholar Bruni, who says, uh, God is so fond of man, of the human being, that he endowed him with all his qualities, including how he looked. So he says, if you call it anthropomorphic, you're putting uh, it in the reverse, okay, which is God being depicted like a man. In fact, he says it's not like that. The creation of the human being is in the image of God. So we are God morphic. Okay, we look like gods, is basically what Bruni, the Renaissance scholar, argues. I don't know about others, but I definitely, if I just need a trunk, and then I look like Ganesha the god. So maybe Bruni has some sense. Okay, once I should try. Not try. Actually, during Ganesh festival, I don't go out because my fear is that when they're doing this Nimajjan, they might pick me up and put me in the Hussain Sakar Lake. It will be a horrible death. Okay, so uh, so they say that we are God morphic. People like Bruni. They don't agree to the idea that we have created God in our image, but they say God has created uh, the human being in his, because they're gods. are anthropomorphic, unlike the Christian God. The Christian God is not anthropomorphic. In fact, he's not any morphic, doesn't have any shape, any distinct. So the question, therefore, is if there is this God which nobody can see, if nobody can touch, then people will say, why should we believe in this God? Why should we believe in the supreme power of this God? And that would be a very valid question, because for us, most of the time, unless we see something or we feel something or something which is practicable to our senses, we don't agree it exists. If we don't see air, but we exist, we believe that air exists because we can feel the air. Okay? We can see water, we can feel it, so we agree that it exists. But God is beyond all this. So, how do we believe in God? That is the question. The answer given by the sacerdotium for that is very simple. God is not, just because you can't see something, it doesn't mean that thing doesn't exist. Just make a simple example, a very simple example, which is for, let's say, you've come to my house, or no, you're not come to my house. You're seeing me teaching you from my house. Okay? You, however much I try to blur the background, you get to see how this room is. Right? You get to see how the room is. Now, beyond that thing that you can see on the screen, okay, you don't know anything else about my house. You don't know what is to my left, to my right, and beyond that wall that you can see where there's a curtain hanging. Beyond that, you can't see. Now, does that mean that my house is only that wall, which is what you can see? You have to believe if I tell you that there are several more rooms in my house. It becomes what is called an article of faith. If I tell you I don't live somewhere where there's just a wall behind me, okay, and a small little computer in front of me, it isn't something that you will agree with. Okay, so uh, you will say he must be having a house, though you don't know how big the house is, how many rooms there are in it, how many people are staying in it. You don't know all those things. You don't know which floor I am on. Does that mean that all these other things, the floor that I am on, the number of people in my house, they're all non-existent? They are pretty much existent. You'll probably never see them. You'll probably never see them. That's all. So, given that particular this thing, they say that this is an article of faith. Tomorrow, if I say, please come to my house, you've done rather well in your Western political thought exam. So I would like to take a part of the credit for your doing very well, since I have been teaching you this paper. So come, I'll give you a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, whichever beverage is your preference. Uh, will you say, but he doesn't have a house? How can we go to a place where there's just a wall? You'll ask me for my address. These days, of course, you don't need to give the address like in the past, no directions. All I need to do is WhatsApp you my location. You'll see the location and you'll come to where I am. So similarly, the abode of God is supposed to be paradise. Okay, the technical name is not heaven. If you look at the Bible, the technical name is paradise. So, paradise, the biryani people tell me is great, but I don't think too much of paradise biryani anyway. But one hopes that God's paradise is better than this paradise that we see in Hyderabad and Secunderabad and various locations now. Now, so this God's realm, God's abode, which is paradise, which you can't see here. Okay, so does it mean that the God doesn't exist? He does, and he communicates through the medium of prophets. If you look at the story of the Ten Commandments, what do the Ten Commandments tell you? The Ten Commandments tell you that these are the diktats of God. And that is when actually the name God came into being. Because when Moses was actually taking the Jews who were construction workers in Egypt, when he was taking them to the land of milk and honey, which was Israel. In those days, it was not called Israel, it was called Judea, and another part of it was called Samaria. Though the Judea part is something which is more important, and that's how that religion also draws its name as Judaism, because it took its birth in Judea, the promised land. So now, so it's always been prophets who have been used apparently as uh, carriers of God's message. So when uh, Moses chose the Jews to make them come from Egypt to Judea, the people were put to hardships. Okay, there was sometimes no water to drink. They felt thirst, they felt this, and at that time, people used to say, "What is this land of milk and honey? You're taking us through drought and famine, where we don't have anything to eat and we don't even have water to quench our thirst." So, in that instance, Moses had a tendency to go up to a place which was like a hillock, not one hillock, there are several. So, as they were moving forward, he would go to these different hillocks. And then he would come back with a message saying, God is saying this. I have heard, not God. He says that, yes, I have been told that if we walk so much more, it'll all come. And if we do this, uh, we'll find water. So some people within the group got a little curious. They said, every time we ask for something, and they used to threaten to rebel and go back to Egypt. So then, whenever that happened, Moses used to run to the nearmost. Stop it! Stop it! They used to go to the. He used to go to the most nearby. What should we say? Uh, we should go to the nearest hill, and he used to come back with this message, whichever that message might have been. And so they got curious and asked him, "Who do you go to, and who do you talk?" And who gives you all these messages? So Moses one day, he only used to hear a voice. He never saw anything, anyone. He only used to hear a voice. And he said, I hear a voice that tells me what to do. And then these people said, doesn't that voice have a name? Whose voice is that? Who's speaking to you? So the next time again, when Moses went up, this time he made it a point to ask the voice. He said, see, I'm being asked, who is giving you these instructions? And that is when the Ten Commandments were actually given by God. And that is when Moses asked, listen, you're given 10 commandments which are in the forms of do's and don'ts. They are not just, walk for some more time, you'll get water, you'll get food. It's not that. These are do's and don'ts. And so, how do I justify? Who do I say is telling all these things to me? And the voice said, God. So Moses said, but God means no. So the voice said, yes. Moses said, I know that you don't have a shape. How do I justify? He says they don't know the God. You just go and tell them it's God. That's what the voice tells Moses. So Moses goes and says, this is what God's commandments are. So this time, instead of saying, I heard a voice, which basically said this, here he used the word God. And he said, God said that we should follow these commandments, the Ten Commandments. Okay, and now the whole idea, you must remember, of a God who's and the world being monotheistic. And you say the world is ruled by a monarch, okay, who is sitting in a different abode but ruling this world. And that sacerdotium is represented, is the representative of God on earth. What is it that they were actually saying? They were basically saying that some people who led a pious and holy life, only those kind of people could basically hear God. Okay? So they spent prayers uh, and they said virtue. You have to cultivate virtue, which is living according to the commands of God. So that is how you have the building up of monotheism. Monotheism is one particular God only. In India, people say we are polytheistic. Okay, we are polytheistic because people make all kinds of jokes about Hinduism. That is because they're not informed about what Hinduism really is. One of the jokes that I'm not a BJP, RSS guy defending Hinduism. Uh, it's just that I happen to know what uh, the concept of God in Hinduism is, just like I told you, Vishnu and Krishna. These are the spirits that permeate, living spirits that permeate the whole Brahman, which is the universe. Okay, they permeate it. They are not anthropomorphic. So that is like God. So the whole idea that we have 3 crore gods is rather ridiculous. Okay, this polytheism has come into what came to be called Hinduism. Hinduism, again, is not a self-designated religion. It's not a religion at all, if you ask me. It is technically what people call a synecdoche, Synechdeche, pronounced synecdoche, where you confuse the part for the whole or the whole for the part. But it's not just one thing. It's not one thing. It consists of many things. All the manyness, you confuse it for oneness, or you confuse all the oneness for many. So it's a synecdoche. And in this case, of course, it's a confusion of the fact that there are so many different types of gods who are supposed to be in Hinduism. Like I said, Hinduism is a Persian word. India was called the land of Sapta Sindhu, the seven rivers, Sindhu being the central river, which in Sanskrit is Sindhu, uh, which in Persian was Hindu, and which was Indus in Latin. So India, also the name, comes from not our own designation. It is the Latin Christian designation of this land. And Hindu is the designation of the Persians. Now, it's a much longer story, but we don't have the time to go through that. So Hinduism is actually simply called Sanatana Dharma because central to the concept of Dharma, to the whole this thing called Hinduism, it's not an ism, it is not properly organized. An ism is a properly organized thing, which Hinduism is not. You find so many strands of different kinds of organizations. So you see that, so when you say Hindu, uh, what exactly do you mean? You only mean one who resides on that side of the river Indus or the river Hindu, according to them. Okay, and that is why even the mountains, not the Himalayas, the ones before them near the Samarkand region, they are called Hind Kush. Okay, so, and we still say Jai Hind. Hind is the actual Persian designation given to the land, which is the geographical entity called India. It is Hind. So, okay, and Iqbal the poet, though he said I'm a patriot, he, of course, fought for Pakistan later. Uh, but when he wrote Sare Jahan Se Acha, Hindustan hai hamara, in that he doesn't use the word Hindu except in Hindustan. He basically uses in the refrain, doesn't say Hindu hai hum. He doesn't say that. He says Hindi hai hum. Hindi is a language that is spoken on this side apparently. Okay, so you see there are so many of these confusions, and so people say we are polytheistic. Maybe we are. We can't deny that, though I doubt very much if we have 3,000 gods or 3 crore gods. So if you look into these different parameters, if you look into these different aspects, the one thing that becomes very clear is that we are not monotheistic. And by that, we don't qualify to be called a religion. A religion, by definition, which was given by Cicero, okay, the Roman thinker, is a monotheistic entity. Okay, a monotheistic entity, and there are only 3 monotheistic religions or entities in this world which can be called religions, and they are all bunched together as Abrahamic religions because these were the religions floated by the sons of Abraham. His eldest son, he had 8 sons or something like that, but only 2 sons had some role in playing this. Uh, Judaism definitely is attributed to his elder son Ishaq, okay, and which we today pronounce as Isaac. All right, and the outcome of Judaism, which is Christianity, is because Moses said there will be another prophet coming. And Jesus said, I am that prophet. Okay, so some of the Jews said, you're not, you're a fraud. Okay, and some of the people accepted. So there are reasons why he was rejected and reasons why he was accepted. We can't go into those now. This is not a class in theology. So if you look at that, then you see Judaism remain as Judaism, and they're still waiting for that other prophet that Moses said would come. They're waiting for that prophet who hasn't come yet. Okay, that is the position of the Jews. Now, the Christians took their name from Christ. Christ is again a Hebrew word, which is the equivalent of prophet or paigambar. So Christ can either mean paigambar is a Messiah, paigambar is a prophet, and Masiha is Messiah. Okay, so Christ includes both meanings, Messiah and prophet. So his name was just Jesus. And because people saw him as a prophet, they gave him the name Christ, Jesus the prophet. Okay? And that's how Christianity got its name. It derived its name from the title that was given to Jesus by the people, saying that he was a prophet, which he claimed he was. Okay? And so they became Christians. Now, both the Jews and Christians are seen as descendants of Ishaq or Isaac, the eldest son of Abraham. Now, don't ask me who Abraham is. I can tell you all those I can. But if you want, we'll have a class in theology. Not one class, we'll have to do 1 month at least in theology. And then we can look into these different aspects, but not now. But I'm telling you this so that you understand what the fundamental differences are. Why are some called religions and why are some not called religions? Okay, Hinduism is not a religion, it's a philosophical outlook, as is Buddhism. It is also not a religion, it is a philosophical outlook. Not a way of life, as people say everything. Even a religion is a way of life. It's a philosophical outlook. Yeah, we'll have a class on that, tyranny, once we finished with these. Okay. So Buddhism is, like I said, Buddhism is not a philosophy. Buddhism is, it's not a religion. Jainism is not a religion. These are all philosophical ways of understanding the universe, which is what Sanatana Dharma also was. But so the world, even today, has only 3 religions: Judaism, Christianity, supposedly originating from Ishaq, Isaac, the elder son, and Islam originated from the third son. God knows why the second son was not active. The third son's name was Ishmael, which is in present day, Ishmael is forsaken by both the Christians and the Jews. They don't accept Prophet Muhammad as a prophet. Okay? Whereas the sons of, the followers of Ishmael believe in Muhammad the prophet. They believe in this whole religion called Islam. Islam comes from Ismail, which was the pronunciation, the non Hebrew pronunciation of Ishmael. Ismail is the name, and that comes from that Islam is Ismail's is a this thing to Ismail. Okay, so what we are therefore seeing now is that there is, though they are all Abrahamic religions, they are not always united. They're not always united. The Christians accept Judaism, they accept the prophets of Judaism, but the Muslims do not accept, but they do not accept the idea Muhammad was a prophet. They do not. Okay? And that's why they continue. And they say that Jesus said, I'll come back. And if you see on the Narayan graveyard, there's a huge board there that is written there which says, Jesus said, I am the resurrection. The resurrection. Hey, okay. The resurrection. I think I should stop here. Jesus claimed that he's the resurrection. But what so if you hey, shut up, stop. If you look at the Christians, they accept uh, Jewish prophets and they accept Christian prophets, uh, but they don't accept Muslim prophets. There's no prophets. There's only one prophet, Prophet Muhammad. They don't accept that because Muhammad said Jesus will come back, but he won't come back as a prophet. And that is not acceptable to the Christians. And Muhammad said, I am the latest and the last prophet. And the Quran is the last revelation. Now, please remember this word, revelation, because this is where I'll begin our class next time. Because as per the Christian system, all knowledge is not something that you have thought about and rationally inculcated, but all knowledge is that which is being revealed to you. All knowledge is that which has been revealed to you, and revealed by whom? Revealed by God, this monotheistic God. And so, who has revealed it? Through the medium of the Prophet. And through the medium of, if you're a if you are a Jew, then you say Talmud, Torah, and if you're a Christian, you'll say Old Testament, New Testament, the Bible, both put together. And then you will also talk about Islam, which is based in the Quran. They are all holy texts. People will try to tell you Bhagavad Gita, the Vedas, they are all holy texts. They are not holy texts. There's nothing holy in them at all. There's nothing. In fact, there's no one Bhagavad Gita. You must understand. Yes, there is one Bhagavad Gita, which is supposed to have been the preaching of Krishna to Arjuna. But there is a sum total of 58 Gitas in the Sanatana Dharma tradition. The first ever Gita was that which was called the Ashtavakra Gita, which sage Ashtavakra preached to King Janak, who was the father of Sita. Okay, so we don't believe in revealed knowledge. We don't believe in revealed knowledge. We believe in wisdom of the ancient people. Wisdom of the ancient people. And Vyasa, Veda Vyasa. His real name is Krishna Dvaipayana. There are many Vyasas, those who used to write, those who used to organize. Why was he called Veda Vyasas? Veda Vyasa. He was called Veda Vyasa because he organized the Rig Veda as the first, the Yajur Veda as the second, the Sama Veda as the third, and the Atharvana Veda as the fourth. So that is why he's called Krishna Dvaipayana. He's called uh, Veda Vyasa. And because he's supposed to have told the story of the Mahabharata, he is supposed to have dictated it to Ganesha, who wrote it down. So the Mahabharata is sometimes referred to by some people as the Panchama Veda, the fifth Veda, not just the four Vedas, but it's a Panchama Veda. So anyway, so we'll stop here today. Revelation as a source of knowledge. Please remember this. Tomorrow, when we meet, we will pick this up. Okay? Thank you very much.